Hello, welcome back. I'm Reverend Tomas Garza, and we've arrived, nearly at the end here of the workbook for students, which I've lovingly and only half jokingly referred to as the beginning. Y'all know why. When we reach the end, we're not really done, are we? We're never really done. Think of an artist or a musician who says that they've arrived. That's dangerous, isn't it? It's also wrong, because where have they arrived to? It's where creativity goes to die if you're in the art world, isn't it? I like to use this as an example because you never arrive. Especially in spirituality, we don't actually arrive because we discover, as we supposedly arrive, in the way of making progress, in the way of incremental successes or quantum successes, in the manner that the world sees them. We don't really arrive because there's no place for us to go, because there's no place at all in the end. We simply reawaken to the truth of who we are. So when you finish something quite monumental, like a year or more with the workbook for students, I think that it's valuable to look back at where you were when you opened this book up and saw lesson one and did some of those first exercises in the workbook, the first few lessons, where you may have found yourself wondering, what the hell am I actually doing anyway? What actual purpose does this serve? And you may have gone so far as to say, what the actual fuck is really going on? Seriously? It's common enough. It's common enough, and it's a great question. Why are we doing this? Well, now that we've reached lesson 357, I hope that the reason why we do those exercises is clear. And if you ever have any doubts, what works for me is to think that, and just know and trust that Jesus knows exactly what he's doing at all times. And that suffices for me. Perhaps that may suffice for you too. In order to set the ego aside, it's incredibly helpful and necessary for us in the world to admit that we don't have all the answers and to trust in what we call many things here in the world. One of those is a higher power or higher wisdom, or to trust a guide who's been there, done that, whether this is a human teacher or not. It's essential, if we're to set aside our ego identification, that we pay real close attention to the meaning of the statement of myself, I can do nothing. Because when you allow yourself to think about it, and I invite you to do this always, our own manipulations of the world, our own attempts at control, are each and every one of them utter failures, aren't they? Why? Because they don't lead to the peace of God. It may feel like they do. We may attempt to control a situation or a person and get some momentary satisfaction from that. Someone may do what we wish them to do in a particular circumstance, but can we rest 100% assured that that person does not resent us for supposedly giving in to our demands? Can we rest assured that everything that we say and do in this situation leads to maximal, loving, beneficial impact for all people throughout space and time, and everything that lives, for that matter? Can we really, truly say that? And when you decide you want to be really completely honest with yourself, the conclusion you'll find yourself arriving at is no. When we attempt to control and manipulate phenomena and become anxious and stressed out and worried because things aren't going the way we want them to go, it, in those instances, is clearly evident, isn't it, that we are looking in the wrong place for answers. You are the answer, not your manipulation of phenomena, not your attempts to control the weather, right? Not your attempts to control your own physical happiness and your own body and someone else, not your attempts to control your partner in a relationship by influencing or manipulating their decision to conform to your egoic wishes. Yeah, none of that. The answer is within, because we are the answer. Enter lesson 357, and we really very nearly have reached the end of the workbook. Truth answers every call we make to God, responding first with miracles and then returning unto us to be itself. Yes, truth answers every call we make to God, responding first with miracles, then returning unto us to be itself. Every call that we make to God is answered. We sometimes simply refuse to hear the answer. Another way of looking at this is every call to God is instantly answered. All right now, because there is no future, remember, no time. All right now, in this moment. We often, all too often, simply make the choice not to hear the answer, or we run and hide. We're afraid of the answer. How many times in the world have you reached out to somebody for help or for information? Let's take a business context, for example, because this will be familiar to many of us. Let's say you arrive at the decision that you're going to reach out to a coach or a minister or a teacher, a spiritual teacher, or someone in the vast field of self-help and spirituality. Let's say you're going to reach out to someone for a bit of information about a modality that they work with, or A Course in Miracles, something like that, a practice that they do, because you recognize that of yourself you can do nothing and you need help because your way clearly isn't working. That when you allow yourself, first of all, to arrive at that decision, then let's say you ask for help, the person responds and you never email them back or you never message them back. You instantly retreat. How many times have you done that in that context? We can do that. We can do that every time we reach out, not just to a person. I'm using this as an example of reaching out to God, calling to God, and being afraid of the answer and running and hiding. We can do that with a call to the creator of all life, just as well as we can ignoring a return message from somebody who could help us. becoming afraid of doing the inner work, afraid of what that might entail, afraid of giving up our ego identification, which is saying, stay safe, but don't stay safe. I'm going to kill you in the end. But stay safe right now. Tell yourself you're safe, but you're really not safe. You're safe, you're unsafe. Frenetic, schizophrenic, isn't it? Crazy. It's nuts. I hope that in these 357 lessons and whatever additional spiritual work you've done in your lifetime, I know some of you have done a lot, quite a lot. It's great, isn't it? I hope that you recognize just how insane the ego is. It says, do this 1 minute, retract it the next. In other words, stay stationary and go no place. Keep all of your judgments. That's what it's telling you. And then in the end, this thing will disappear. Which it will. But meanwhile, live like it won't and deny the fact that you and God are one. Yeah, the ego says, perish the thought. And it's incumbent upon each of us to wake up. Step number 1, realize that you don't want to feel the way you feel. That's the call of the Holy Spirit. That's the call deep inside you to awaken right now. When else? There's no other moment. You're not going to awaken 5 years from now because 5 years from now isn't here. Truth answers every call we make to God. Here's how it responds. It responds first with miracles. What's a miracle? Any thought, right? Any thought, any happening, any circumstance that causes a shift in our minds from the voice of the ego to the voice for God, from the ego to God, from fear to love. Anything, a miracle. This is how God responds. And then what happens is it's truth then returns to us. To be itself, this is one of the prayers that I invite you to say to your guide or guides, your teacher, your inner teacher, to allow truth to be just as it is. This is how you do this. Course in Miracles makes very clear that the miracle itself is, in fact, an illusion. It is. It involves first a choice. In heaven, in our natural condition as one with God, there's nothing to choose between. We simply are. And we know we are. Here in the world, where we think we're these things running around called human beings, that's actually a label, isn't it? That's a collection of sounds that we use to refer to this and other things like this that look like this, other communication devices. Talking truth here with a capital T, which always responds to our call. The question is, are we willing to listen to it? Forgiveness is a miracle, and it is an illusion. However, as Jesus very clearly points out, it is the only illusion that leads out of suffering. It points to the truth. You and your brother are one. I'm one with you, like it or not. We're all stuck with each other. Isn't that funny? It is, in fact. We pretend in life that we're separate. It's a condition that appears very real to us when we believe in it. But when we change our minds, the illusory nature of it is just as apparent as its reality appeared to be prior. We make a choice, we change our minds, we exercise the power of choice that we have here in the present moment. Our natural state of being, our natural condition, is one with God, is love itself, limitlessness, joy, expanse that knows no opposites. Here in the world of opposites, what do we need to do? We need to make choices. We have a choice, one choice between two options. Every moment of every day, we choose God or the ego. We choose love or we choose fear. We choose life or we choose death. Put it that way, if that helps you. Sometimes we need a stark example, yeah? Sometimes we need that. Sometimes we need something general, gentle, sugar-coated. Sometimes not. There are apparently some among you watching who do not need the lovey-dovey rainbows and unicorns, sugar-coated bullshit today, do you? And for those that do, well, this is a loving message. I am simply a conduit for it. I show up and teach because I don't know who may be watching. I don't know who may be listening, and I would not leave any of you behind. Period. The truth is that whether we like it or not, we are one with our brother, our sister, everyone. Forgiveness, as a miracle, helps us to see that. It is the function by which we change our mind. Now, the world appears very real to us when we identify with the ego, doesn't it? We call this communication device a human body. And we further divide it and subdivide it. It's a male human body. It's a brown-eyed human body. It is a balding male brown-eyed human body. Age 50, we put a numerical label on that and call it our age. Right? We say, I'm wearing a blue shirt. It's I, which we equate in the world with a physical body. It seems very real to us. Our science books teach us this is who we are, with our certain chromosomal pairing and genetics and all of that that you learned in science class. When we believe it, it appears very real to us. Why? Our mind is so powerful. It's what we want to see. You could want the peace of God instead and see all of this differently. Doesn't mean that you don't function in the world. I'm functioning in the world. I've got appointments later on today, a couple of bills to pay. I know, right? I ate some breakfast. I had some coffee. I went to the bathroom. You know, we function in the world, but when we change our mind and want the peace of God and only the peace of God, we experience all of this differently. And you may be experiencing this yourself. If you're not, you will. You will. Doesn't have to be today, of course. But at some point, this is what time is for. So I invite you to save yourself some time and make what we call in the world progress, mindful of the fact that in truth, there's no place to go because we're simply allowing truth to be as it is. We're removing the veils. We're parting a fog bank. And if you want to look at it as tearing down a wall, you could do that. I would invite you not to tear it down with violence because it's not real. It's not an opponent. It's not something to oppose. There's no one to oppose. This all enters into our minds constantly when we allow truth to be just as it is. When we make the decision, by the way, that Jesus made and invites us to make the decision for God in the present moment, choosing God instead of the ego, listening to the voice of the Holy Spirit or your teacher instead of the ego voice that says, yeah, stay small. We'll guise it as being safe and comfortable, but you're not really comfortable because we're going to make you a little uncomfortable and we're going to have you ignore the root cause of the problem, which is the choice you're making right now. We can all choose differently. Jesus invites us to do just that, to make his choice for God, and heal by sharing that choice, forgiveness. What we give away is strengthened. Your forgiveness strengthens the entire sonship. In the Course, the sonship is all of us. Seriously, because we're all one, we're all connected, right? Everyone benefits from an act of kindness. Everybody, period. No one is excluded from your forgiveness. So I invite you to do it more and more and more. What you give away is an idea. It's strengthened. It's not lost. It's not like giving somebody a $20 bill, all of a sudden you're out $20. It's not like that. When you give away an idea, it's strengthened. We see this in the world when people extend love. The idea is strengthened. When someone donates a marvelous piece of art to the Louvre or a museum or something like that, that gift is shared. That's only one example. There are plenty of examples if you're willing to look at them. This is the choice that I invite you to make. It's the choice that Jesus himself made. Let's listen to him, because as we talked about earlier, he knows what he's talking about. He has literally walked the walk and invites each and every one of us to walk that walk with him. So won't you start that right now, today? Won't you start that right now, today? If you're just beginning A Course in Miracles, I invite you to start wherever you are comfortable starting, whether that's the text, the workbook, or the manual for teachers. However, if you're going to start with the workbook, don't start at lesson 357. Start at lesson 1, the way Jesus intended us to, and do what he says, one lesson at a time, no more than one a day. This is not something that you can race through. So if you choose to begin and continue it, then do it the way he suggests. After all, he knows exactly what he's talking about, guys. He invites you to turn back in tomorrow and the next day and the next day. Tune back. Yeah, to continue, because if this spirituality is a moment to moment practice, we have the choice between God or the ego in the present moment. Which we make determines how we feel. It determines this entire movie that we call our life. And I know that you want a positive outcome. Why? Deep down, all of us want the peace of God. How do we ensure that we have the peace of God? Well, through the collection of practices, prayers, activities, miracles that we call spirituality. There's no reason to fear spirituality. There's no reason to fear life itself. If you're wondering what will happen when you begin to change your mind, try it and see. I most definitely invite you to do that. I most definitely invite you to try it out for yourself. See what happens. But honestly, try it. You know what I'm talking about. We can all run and hide. Running and hiding just leads to more spinning around. We all know this. Are you afraid? I don't know. If you are, that's all right. It's really natural. Understand that it's the ego that is terrified. It's fear itself. Entertain some of these ideas that this course puts forth. They're universal ideas. They apply no matter what your religious or spiritual background is. You don't have to adopt any of this as your main practice if you don't want to. It's a self-study curriculum, right? That does not mean it's a cult. It's not. It's not a religion. The world doesn't need another religion. Nor does it need another reason to delay, does it? So I invite you, as Jesus invites all of us, to save time. When you see someone who has clearly done some of this work, they don't have to be an enlightened saint or a Buddha or anything like that at all. When you see someone who clearly has been extending forgiveness and loving kindness and is peaceful and calm and joyous and freely gives of what he or she has and is, see yourself. Recognize yourself in the love that that person is giving away and strengthening by so giving. Recognize yourself, and I will see you right back here on the next video as we seriously wind down the workbook for students. Have a great day, everybody.